Hello, friends. I'm Kush Khandelwal, and this is Ageless Athlete. A few years ago, I started asking questions that would not leave me alone. Why do some people keep pushing mentally, physically, spiritually long after others burn out or break down? What does it really mean to age well when you still crave movement, meaning, and mastery? This show is my search for answers. Each week, I talk to elite athletes, everyday adventurers, and pioneering researchers who are stretching the limits of what's possible across age, injury, illness, and self doubt. You will hear hard won lessons, untold stories, and science backed strategies for building a body and mindset that lasts. For those of us joining for the first time, welcome to the show. For the rest, thank you for joining us again. Time is our most valuable asset, and I deeply appreciate you giving me your time today.
Imagine this. It's still dark. You are walking towards the shoreline on the north shore of Oahu. The road is lined up with cars. Some people slept in vans, others camped on sidewalks. You hear the distant thud of the ocean, a kind of thunder you feel more than you hear. Today, the eddy is on. The Eddie Aikau Invitational is one of the most legendary and sacred events in all of surfing. It only runs when the waves are truly massive, and when they do, it becomes a kind of national holiday in Hawaii. Surfers are invited based on skill, yes, but also based on heart, integrity, and courage. And in the winter of 2023, Bianca Valenti became one of the few women in history to compete in it. Bianca is a professional big wave surfer, but that doesn't begin to capture who she is. She's also an activist who helped lead a historic fight for equal pay in surfing, a battle that changed the rules for everyone and showed what happens when you stop waiting for permission. She's an entrepreneur, a coach, and a fierce advocate for what's possible, not just for women, but for anyone willing to learn, grow, and show up. In this conversation, we go deep. We talk about the near death experience at Ocean Beach in San Francisco when he launched her big day career. The 10-day raw milk cleanse she was in the middle of while we recorded. The psychology and preparation that allows her to enter the water on 50-foot days. And her coaching, including how she helped a 59-year-old rookie surf Mavericks for the first time. And here's why this episode matters, even if you don't surf. Bianca has spent decades learning how to dance with fear, how to reset her body and wow after setbacks, and how to keep showing up when the path ahead isn't clear. Her lessons about breadth, mindset, aging well, and learning from failure, they are relevant to all of us. So if you have ever wondered how to stay in the game longer or how to begin something new when the odds feel such, this one's for you. Stick together until the end. She shares some of the best practical takeaways I've heard all season. Let's dive in. Bianca, super excited to have you. Like I said, I am also from San Francisco. I don't think we have met, but I also learned to surf at Ocean Beach, at Pacifica, some of those breaks. Yeah, so I feel some kind of kinship to interview, have somebody who's an Ocean Beach charger on my on my podcast. Well, just to kick off, this is how I usually start. Tell us where you are right now, Bianca.
I'm in San Francisco, California, at Ocean Beach.
Okay, super. And then what did you have for breakfast this morning?
I had some berries and a little sweet potato and a couple of turkey meatballs with like some chard and olive oil.
Okay, that sounds like a different breakfast than I
Yeah,
usually
that's-
have people tell me about.
Yeah.
I'm guessing, is this like a normal breakfast?
No. This is part of this cleanse that I'm on. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you mind if we talk about that for a second?
Sure. I'm just on a cleanse to reset my gut and like get rid of parasites in my body.
Okay. Was that medically advised, or is
No,
this something you're just
no,
doing proactively?
no. My trainer recommended it because I noticed like a few months ago I started getting puffy and then I gained about like 10 pounds but I didn't necessarily earn it. And so I was like, what's going on? And he was like, oh, I've got this great parasite cleanse. So I'm just putting my trust in him and he's my guide.
And when you say trainer, I'm guessing this is like your physical trainer and not
Yeah,
like a
my coach, exactly.
okay. And have you ever done a cleanse before?
No, I've never done a cleanse before. Yep. First time.
Well, I have been, let's say, contemplating doing something on those lines for like longer than I care to admit. I haven't brought myself to do it. So, how was the experience?
It's interesting because the first of all, I'll just say disclaimer is like this one's specifically prescribed for me, so I wouldn't suggest that anybody try it. And it's really important that you have a guide in this process. And it's probably a little different for each and every person. But so for me, for the first 10 days, all I consumed was raw goat milk and raw cow milk. And that was actually not super challenging. It had challenging moments, like finding raw goat milk is actually incredibly challenging. And the reason why raw goat milk is that it's the closest thing to mother's milk and it's the easiest thing for your body to digest. And so that part, the challenge, I'd have to go on like these scavenger hunts to find the milk, right? And because not a lot of places carry it. And then, it was also kind of easy because I didn't have to think about what I was eating, and then that is like also super good for your gut. So, and it's also really rich and fatty, and so that part actually was pretty easy. And that was for 10 days. And then I'm also on like a number of different supplements throughout the day as part of this. And then now I'm in the second phase, which is I'm still adjusting because I just got into the second phase like 2 days ago. And so this is like to reset your gut and cleanse parasites. And so now I can have most vegetables, but not potatoes. I could have sweet potato or yams. I could have berries, no other fruit. And then I can have any like meat or fish that I want, not eggs though. But no salt, no sugar. And I can have 2 cups of black coffee a day. So, and I'm on a handful of different supplements. So I'm still just adjusting to it, and it requires some meal planning and and I can only bake, boil, broil, or grill my food, no using the pan. So yes, I think I'm just still adjusting to it, and it's a challenge. I've got 11 more days left.
My head is just spinning
Yeah,
as you speak about it. I mean, just that one thing, like not being able to add salt
yeah,
to one's food.
that's the
I can't
hardest.
imagine.
That's the hardest part for sure. Yeah, I don't exactly understand why, but like I said, I'm putting my faith in my guide, and I know there's a lot of other cleanses that where like salt is restricted during the process. So yeah, I'm doing it.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Well, yeah, it sounds like something else, and I don't want to take all our time just talking about it. But let me just say once again, thank you for making time to
Yeah,
have this conversation in the middle of this intense period.
yeah. Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you, Bianca. For those of us who don't know who you might be, Bianca, can you tell us who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, so I'm Bianca. I'm a professional big wave surfer. I am best known for winning the fight for equal pay in surfing. And I love surfing big waves. I've been surfing for 32 years. I love surfing all size waves, but big waves definitely have my heart. And I love the ocean. And I'm an aspiring entrepreneur, just hustling, trying to figure out how to keep supporting myself as a big wave athlete. And that's kind of who I am in a nutshell.
I didn't get a chance to ask you this though. So while you're doing this cleanse, are you allowed to exercise and maybe surf?
Yeah, I have been. And so I think that also, like, I probably overdid it a couple of times, and then like yesterday I was very tired. I had like a rest day for me, and then today I did some light activation this morning, but I skipped the gym today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Because yes, exercise and in your case surf is also some yeah, part of the ritual that keeps us mentally healthy. Yeah, so if you take that away, then that can make things, extra challenging.
Yeah, no, I mean, only time I would say I would need a cleanse from surfing is if I was burnt out, which I have definitely experienced before when I was 16. And so sometimes, if you're going out in the water and you're not loving it, then it's probably a good time for a break.
When I was surfing more regularly, I loved the feeling of surfing fasted, early in the morning, like
Mm,
driving out to the beach. But then I would look forward to having like, that big hearty breakfast after. But in your
yeah.
case, in your case, at least for these few days, that changes because you're
Yeah,
still
I don't
on this cleanse.
I personally don't do well fasted anyways. And I'm not sure if it's because I'm a woman, but I know a lot of guys like to do that, but if I go out surfing without any food, I just like kind of crash and burn. So definitely always like to have a light breakfast. Yeah.
Fair
So
enough.
maybe today it was too hearty, I don't know, but
Sure thing. Sure
yeah.
thing. Bianca, I know you have probably like told your origin story like 100 times, so I won't ask for full replay. But I am curious, was there a moment early on when you felt like this is it? That was ocean or surfing wasn't just something that you love. It was something that was shaping who you are.
Oh, well, I mean, I started surfing when I was 7, and I got a poster of Kelly Slater that very week, and that was in 1992, and it was his first world title. So I got this poster, put it on my wall, and it was like Kelly Slater, world champion 1992. He's 21 years old, and that was like the moment I knew that I wanted to be the best surfer in the world at that time, and I was just like, I want to be like that person who's like standing in that barrel right now. And that's really never changed throughout my life. I've always just loved surfing and loved being in the ocean. And luckily I have a mom who really encouraged me to get out there as much as possible and stay in the water as long as possible. And the nuances of like what I've loved about surfing have morphed and changed and adapted, and so that's what I love about surfing is like you can continue to keep learning and evolving and growing and doing it for, as long as you want.
I've been thinking a lot about energy, not just in training, but in recovery, in focus, in how we age. So when I came across NutriSense, it hit home. It's a program that pairs a 24 by 7 glucose biosensor with a dedicated dietitian to help you understand how your body responds to food, stress, sleep, and movement, and then act on the data. I chose it because I wanted something real, not another hack or one size fits all plan, just honest insight into what's actually going on inside me and how to build habits that last. NutriSense has helped over 150,000 people take that step. And if you want to try it, you can get 33% off your first month with code ageless15 at nutrisense.io. Again, that's nutrisense.io, code ageless15. You can also find this information on the show notes for this episode. Was your so your mom sounds like a trooper? Was she pushing you into waves as
No, no,
you were
no,
a
no,
young
no, no,
child?
no, no, no. No, I was standing up on a boogie board and basically she was like, "Hey, do you want to try a hard board?" And I said, "Yeah." And so she said, "Okay, you can have we have a $75 budget for it." And so we went around to all the local surf shops. There weren't very many at the time, 3, I think. And nobody had anything for $75 except for this one board that was covered in skull and crossbones. And so I was 7 years old, and that was really scary. And I was like, I can't ride that. That's way too scary. But the guys at the surf shop just said, come back tomorrow and it'll look totally different. So we went back the next day and it was all white. And then we went down to Doheny Beach, which is a great beginner beach in Dana Point. And my mom basically just put her chair at the water's edge and said, "Okay, don't make me come and rescue you." And that was it.
Mm,
So I was on my own. Yeah.
wow. How old were you when you first actually entered the water? Not to surf or boogie board. Your first exposure,
Oh,
perhaps.
I don't know. Like in the ocean. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. There was a pool in the neighborhood and um I don't know, probably pretty little. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's say you're 7 now. You have this poster of Kelly Slater, and you have this deep conviction that you are going to be, let's say, the best surfer
Yeah.
out there, and that is not common for somebody at that age to have
Yeah.
that kind of. I don't know what I was doing at 7.
Yeah.
Probably playing with Legos or reading comic books. So as you were growing up, you continued surfing. I'm curious, were there any things that changed for you, that changed your choices, for your family's choices, to allow you to pursue this dream, this passion to.
I luckily like Dana Point is right on the water. And so things that my mom did were like it wasn't so serious like you see the kids nowadays. If
Mm,
that's what you're getting at, it was more like I still played every other sport, like any soccer, baseball, tennis, golf, whatever. I wanted to play all the sports, skateboard, snowboard, but I was really most passionate about surfing. And so to create community, my mom, we joined this, there are these longboard clubs up and down the coastline of California. And they're really nice, like family clubs, because she didn't surf and nobody in my family surfs. So she was like, okay, like, how do I create community for my child who loves this sport? And I think she also just saw like what you're saying, like how healthy it was for my mindset and my spirit, my wellness. She saw that really early on. And so that's why she was always encouraging me, like, if you want to go surfing before school, you got to get up now. And taking me to contests on the weekends. So we joined this club called the Doheny Longboard Surfing Association Club. And those are just like you meet once a month, there's a meeting, and then you pick up trash on the beach. And like at that time, Surfrider Foundation was just starting. And so, people were still smoking tons of cigarettes. So we'd just be like pretty much picking up cigarette butts. And it was a different community from the people who I was going to school with. And so I think that was just she saw that there was value in that and having like different groups of friends, a different community. And then, I started competing when I was 9. And whenever there were contests, she would take me and I was competing with the boys. There was no girls divisions back then. But I mean, no, school was always the top priority, but I just loved surfing and I actually really wanted to be like a pro surfer, pro skateboarder, pro snowboarder. I thought like I could do the trifecta. And then, as as I got older and you start slamming on the skateboard and you're like, oh, this really hurts. And then snowboarding, I would get up there, but not often enough. And so by the time I was 13, I was like, that's when I started surfing year round and getting sponsors and yeah, that's kind of like how it evolved. But as far as my family making any sacrifices or changes, no. I mean, it was just me and my mom, and she was just super cool. And she also loved like being at the beach with her dog. So that's why she would wake me up before school and be like, hey, it's 5:30. If you want to go surfing now, I'll walk the dog while you surf. And and that was before there were any surf teams. And now you go to the beach before school and it's really crowded with the surf teams out before school. So yeah, I just have a lot of gratitude to my mom for being so cool and seeing that passion and really just doing whatever she could to support me getting to go surfing.
And well, good thing that your mom also enjoyed the beach and
Yeah.
also had a dog that
Yeah.
needed to be walked in the morning. And as you were talking, I was also thinking that you were growing up, at least at that time, in Southern California, by Dana Point, Orange County, like kind of like
Mm-hmm.
surf zone central. And
Mm-hmm.
I've visited there, never lived there, just to surf. And I feel like the culture there feels so different than the culture up here in San Francisco, where I think in San Francisco, even now, you don't really see, huge groups of kids, families, parents, jonesing to get out to surf in the mornings. And I think that is just so different. So now that I think about it, like what you were doing maybe was not so counterculture because down there, I think it is seen as a healthy activity. Maybe there are more people doing it. Any
Right.
any reflections on like how your journey may have been different had you grown up anywhere else?
Well, the difference was that I was the only girl out there.
Uh,
Yeah. So like when I was doing it, that like I said, there weren't really the family aspect was because we joined that longboard club. So once a month we'd get to meet up with those families and then yeah, the main difference was that I was the only girl around and it was the 90s and it was really punk rock and hardcore and very intimidating, especially in the shortboard scene. And but I didn't care because I just was like, whatever, I just want to go surfing. And so like when my mom was at work, I'd walk to the beach and then I'd call her and when she was off work and be like, pick me up, and then hang up the payphone, and then I just wait there. So I would just spend hours and hours and hours at the beach. And I was pretty good at just like being in my own world, focused on surfing and not really like getting into the drama or the like I don't know, I wasn't turned away by like the punk rock localism. I was just kind of maybe a little bit oblivious to it until a certain point.
yes, excellent point that times have changed quite quickly. And even
Mhm.
now, we have so much to do when it comes to equal access. But back then, things were just way different. Many people who get good at surf, I started surfing as an adult. And I
Mhm.
sometimes complain that I wish that I had grown up by the water, had my dad push me. That didn't happen for me. You also were self-taught, it sounds like.
Yeah.
How were you picking up these skills, Bianca? Or do you think you just had some gift to be able to learn the basics, get good at technique?
Well, I mean, just experimenting. Yeah, I think like, yeah, coaching didn't exist when I was growing up. I'm definitely a 1,000,000% self-taught. I had to learn differently too because I was the only girl. And so what I noticed was like the guys who had older brothers or older dads, they would get passed down a lot of information. And I was definitely jealous of that growing up. I always wished I had like an older brother, somebody who I could go surfing with and who would like help me break into the pack. But I didn't. And so I would always just try to pick everyone's brain all the time and ask a ton of questions and try different boards. And I what must have watched The Endless Summer 2 like 2,000 times, probably no joke. I would watch it like at least 3 or 4 times a week. And I subscribed to every single surf magazine there was, and I would get every single surf video that ever came out. Like, as I was just obsessed, and so I think that there is value if you're constantly watching surfing and good surfers, and reading through magazines and looking at pictures, that that's another way to pick up on the technique and develop a skill set. And also just like that, having that curious mentality and trying new equipment and fins, and I mean, whatever I could get my hands on, because I didn't have, like, my mom was a single mom, and so like, it wasn't like I would save up and save and save and save to get a new board. But I was always curious to try new things and to try different fin setups and different boards. And I think that's how you learn, is just by taking notes and trying different equipment in the same conditions and trying different equipment in different conditions. And so that's what I did, and just spending a ton of time in the water.
Many of us try to teach ourselves a difficult sport, but all of us don't end up at that world stage like like you have. So you obviously have, besides the talent, you also have this ability to learn
Yeah.
and to explore and to invent. And the other thing I also am perhaps gleaning is that this tenacity that you had to kind of find your place as a female, as a kid in this lineup, and to fight, to learn, to focus, where sometimes the the field seems uneven. It feels like you have carried that part of your personality, and that's only gotten maybe just bigger and more polished because of so much of the work that you have done outside of just your own surfing prowess and competence, and I hope to get into some of that a little bit later. But one quick fun aside I wanted to point out is, like, I also adore Endless Summer 2. And I haven't watched it like 2,000 times like you have, but I've watched it plenty. I actually had Vingnut on this podcast
Oh, cool.
some time ago, and I was like, I was like, I just had to find a way to bring him or Pat O'Connell
Yeah.
onto the show.
Yeah,
That is such a good movie.
it is.
So I think one thing that will likely surprise folks is that you started out as a longboarder,
Yeah.
which seems a far cry, from the world of like giant, freight train barrels at places like Mavericks that you are best known for. So, um, is there like a story that you can share on how did that transition take
Yeah.
place?
There's actually, I honestly think that everyone should start on a longboard, and that especially if you're struggling with technique, that's what you need to do, because when you ride a longboard, you learn how to engage the rail and use the tail and the nose, and that actually translates really, really well to surfing big waves, because in big waves, you ride big boards. So it was actually less of a struggle. But no, yeah, I was a longboarder, and when I started to shortboard, I did notice that, like, the vibes were just aggro and not as enjoyable to be around for the most part. Like, when I was on the US junior surf team when I was 13, I went to Bali, and I was with all shortboarders, and I was an 8th grader, and I was going into high school the next year, and like, they were all really mean. And I was like, I was calling my mom again, like thousands of dollars in money of collect calls from Bali. And I was just like, and I think she was always encouraging me to longboard, because she liked the vibe better. And she liked watching, because, you just catch more waves, and it's more like a dance. But so I was a sponsored athlete. And when I was 16, I realized, like, that girls didn't have the same opportunities as boys in this sport. And that really pissed me off and burnt me out. I like just immediately felt burnout. I realized like the guys who were on the same team as me, even though I was the athlete who was always at the top of the podium, but the guys who rode for the same companies and the girls who had the model image, they had better packages than me. And so that really, really pissed me off. And I was like, you know what? I'm over this. And I just stopped talking to everybody. I dropped all my sponsors and I completely stopped longboarding. There was one year where I went to school in LA because my mom got remarried, and there was a surf team in the morning before school. And so these kids that were on the team, one of them gave me a shortboard, and it was like this potato chip shortboard. And so I was like, oh, okay. And it was just something new and different to try, and a new scene. And those guys respected me and they were cool. And so I started hanging out with them. And so then I was like, oh, this is like a new challenge and it's really hard. And I'm not the best at it anymore. And so I was like, okay, well, I want to get good at this. And I put in all my time and effort and energy into then learning how to shortboard well. And then I went on to go to UC Santa Barbara, and I picked back up the longboard a little bit because in Santa Barbara a lot of the times you just have really tiny waves. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I got better at longboarding by not longboarding for 3 years and by shortboarding." I learned that what was helping me in both the ways that longboarding could help my shortboarding and the ways that shortboarding could help my longboarding. And then there at UC Santa Barbara is when I started to dip my toes into big waves. And I had a neighbor who was dating a guy who was kind of like this mythical legend on the coast, and he was really known for surfing these big misto slab waves in Central California. And he was like totally a solo surfer guy and very quiet, very introverted, but we became friends because he was coming over. We shared a driveway, myself and my neighbors. And so he was just he liked me, and so he started inviting me to come with him to these spots. And he was like, oh, if you longboard you'll be good at surfing big waves, and and you just need to get some bigger boards. Now you need to start getting some guns. And so I would go with him and he'd show me the spots. And so I started just like, again, saving my money and building up my quiver so that way I'd have bigger boards to surf bigger waves. And there was one day where we went up to Halama Beach. There's a wave called tarantulas, and it gets humongous there. And it's like quadruple black diamond, ninth degree black belt kind of stuff. And so, but you can surf the left, and it's about 1/3 of the size as the right. So I surfed the left and he surfed the right on his 9.6 like Maverick style type of gun. And I was in on the beach and we were watching, and we saw him paddle into this wave and pull into the barrel on the right. And it was the biggest wave I'd ever seen to that date. And he disappeared into that barrel, and our jaws dropped because we thought he's dead, like. And then we saw the tip of the board come out of the barrel again. Then we saw it again, and then he shoots out at the end. And there was like 7 of us there, and we were just jumping up and down on the beach. Like, oh my gosh, that was just so amazing and spectacular, and that kind of like that raw energy there. And I was like, that at that moment, I was like, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. Nobody was out there surfing. These waves were unbelievable, but like very, very challenging. Most people could never do that. And that really stuck with me and inspired me to start trying it on my own.
Amazing. Yes. Yes. I mean, like, waves come in so many shapes and sizes, and a lined up, like, glassy, uh, 4-foot wave at sunrise can look
Yeah.
like something ethereal, but then you take a very different scene, like the one you talked about, that is something out of, you know, completely different dimension.
Yeah, it was dark, it was scary, and
I
that
want to
was
actually
yeah.
just take a moment and talk about that early time in your career, Bianca, when maybe your first exposure to, let's say, the unjustness in the
Yeah.
sponsorship world, and you were one of the top athletes, and you were winning competitions, and at least from the outside, it would seem like you should have been paid at least as well, if not more, because of maybe the attention that you were bringing to your companies. But that was not the case, and you ended up dropping your sponsors.
Yeah.
So that's, yeah, that just seems crazy. Like, I'm sure you can you just talk about that time a little bit? Like,
Yeah.
what was going on? Did you try to actually even ask for equal pay? And then when that didn't happen, like, and then when you said dropped, did you actually like just stop surfing for a while? Like, you dropped out of the door?
Yeah, yeah, like I realized that I mean, first of all, back then, what sponsors wanted was they wanted you to have your pictures in the magazines and your clips in the videos. But if you didn't have them, if you were a woman and you didn't have the model type image, even if you did, I mean, I subscribed to everything. I subscribed to Surfing, Surfer's Journal, Pacific Law, like whatever magazines were out there. Those were the main three. I had a standing subscription for years. And like I said, I would buy any shortboard, longboard, any VHS video that I could get my hands on, I was buying it. And it would just clicked at a certain point where I was like, wait a minute, I buy these magazines every single month and I'm always flipping the pages looking for other women surfers and I know they're out there. And the only representation that I see is the woman in the G string in the reef ads or like a woman in a thong filming her boyfriend surfing. And I was just like, that's not me and that's not who I am. And I was like, this is lame, Like so it pissed me off at a pretty deep level. And the same went for the clips and the videos. I was like my mom was also cool because I would get her to film me whenever I could. And, I was getting like great clips and great waves and winning the contest at the time, if you got a mention in the mag. So I always thought like, why am I not in the magazines when I'm winning and I'd go on the photo shoots and like the photographers would focus on the model images. So it was just like very clear, very messed up. And I probably didn't have the skill set. I know I didn't have the skill set to have the conversation in a calm, in a productive way. I was 16, 15, 16. I just have a ton of fire in my personality. And so the solution, I was just like, this is, I'm over this. I was like, screw you, like I was like, I'm done. I tried having the conversations I would bring, and they didn't go anywhere. And that was it. So I was just like, I'm done with all of you for now, at least, like I just had to walk away from it because they call it competitive burnout. And that's absolutely what I had I was just like, I got burnt out from it. And when I first got that poster of Kelly Slater when I was 7, I didn't realize that he was a man and I was a woman, or a girl. I didn't, he was just a surfer in a poster. And I was like, and I'm a surfer. And for a very long time, I also was beating all the boys in the contest. So I have tons of trophies where it's like first place boys division, and, um, and that was also fun to me. It was just like it didn't matter. I was like, yeah, if you're my age, I will take you down. Like I just loved winning and I loved competition and that spirit. And I also wanted to surf with the people who were the best because that's how you get better, is by surfing against people who are either better or as good as you. And so yeah, it was just, I'm not saying it was right or wrong. It probably, it wasn't very. If I was not a teenager, I would say it was unprofessional the way I handled it. But like, it was just is what it is, you know. And so yeah, I took that break, and then when I came back into surfing, and especially with big waves, I really I really got back to doing it for the love, and I think that that's what matters most, and
Mm.
that's what takes you the farthest in a sport and keeps you going, and you know, in anything in life is like when you're doing something for the love, that's the best way to do something.
Friends, it means a lot that you're here. I pour a ton of heart into the show. The research, the interviews, the editing, it's all me, trying to share stories that matter. If Ageless Athlete has ever made you feel seen, inspired you, or just kept you company on a long drive, or better, over a run or a bike ride, I would be so grateful if you considered supporting it. Even a small amount helps keep it going, helps keep bringing the show to you for free. You can chip in at buymeacoffee.com/agelessathlete. Again, buymeacoffee.com/agelessathlete. You can find the link on the show notes as well. Thank you for listening and for being part of this. And not only that, I mean, surfing even now is not the most handsome like prize giver as compared to,
No,
let's say, even
yeah,
tennis, like,
yeah,
or other mainstream sports. So one has, I mean, it doesn't matter how good you are, doesn't matter how famous you might be, one still needs to be intrinsically motivated to
right,
be able to train, be able to serve, to be able to even take down, like, brutal wipeouts.
yeah.
The kind that I'm sure you have seen more than you care for. And I think you needed that love and that fire again, because after that episode there had to be something new that had to come your way. And you went out and you had this, yeah, it's just like life-giving moment,
Yeah,
experiencing like your friend cast that barrel, and then maybe that again, like that lit a fire under Bianca, and then you just re-channel your energies
yeah.
into big waves. So just moving forward a little bit, Bianca. So you have, from that point, you have surfed big waves all over the world. You're certainly
Mhm.
specialized in a couple of spots. I just asked this very simple question, which is there a moment from your big wave surfing career that you get the most pride from?
Most, I mean, yeah, the most pride is definitely winning the fight for equal pay. Yeah. And but then, by the way, when I saw my friend get that barrel, that wasn't exactly the moment that lit the fire. That was like where I was like, okay, there's something here. But I actually had a near death experience here at Ocean Beach. That was really the true moment that lit the fire. Where I was still in college and I was a senior and I was visiting my friend at UC Santa Cruz, and it was the first swell of the season in November, and we got up really early and started checking all the spots, and everywhere was crowded, crowded, crowded. And Santa Cruz at the time even had like an even more intimidating localism factor than anywhere else in the state. And so we just started driving north, and we kept driving and driving, and we got to Ocean Beach, to VFW's at the beach chalet in between Fulton and Lincoln. And we saw like perfect waves. It was sunny, offshore, nobody out. And we were like, oh my gosh, like I was thinking of, when people are coming across the Oregon Trail and they get to California and they're like, Eureka, we found gold. And so I thought, that this was it. I was like, we just struck gold. And so we what we had no idea was how big the waves are, because there was no scale, there was no people, and we didn't know what we were doing. And so we were both good surfers at the time already, but didn't have the right gear and weren't prepared to go out into what we went out in. So we just, we paddle out, and we actually choose, like I was already a lifeguard, and so I knew the ocean, and so jump into a rip and have a nice, pretty easy paddle out. And then there's this one really big whitewater, like 15 feet of whitewater. And I was like, wow, that's a pretty big whitewater duck dive. Go under that one. And then the next wave was just absolutely psychotic. It was like a 2-story house, and it was just throwing out, like squaring off. And it was the biggest wave I had ever seen in my life, about to break 10 feet in front of me. And so I was going to have to absorb all the power of the wave. I wasn't able to just like get under it before that point. And so I looked at my friend, and he said, well, see you on the other side. And I thought, like, do I try to duck dive this wave, or do I bail my board? Because I've just got this comp light leash, which is like dental floss. And I decided to try to duck dive it, and immediately the board's ripped out of my hands, and I am just like experiencing violence like I've never had this kind of experience before. And I'm just getting like, ragdolled and flipping and twisting and spinning, and I am just getting completely throttled, completely demoed. And finally the violence stops, and I opened my eyes, and all I could see was black, and I had no idea which way was up. And then my feet touched the sand, and I pressed off the sand, and I think it took me like 3 strokes to get to the surface. I mean, I had no energy, so I'm just like very slowly making my way to the surface. And I had this thought of like, oh, if there's another wave, I will be dead. And it was just absolute fact. There was no, I didn't have any energy to have any emotion about it. It was just like, yeah, if there's another wave, I'm dead, because I am like, I have no gas in the tank right now. And I got to the surface, and I was just gasping for air, and my whole entire body was started to convulse, like parts of my neck, my fingers, and I had complete battery acid in my legs from lack of oxygen. And I saw my friend, he was there, and he was like, I'm going in. And I was like, yeah, me too. And so finally get back to the sand, and I just stood there looking at those waves like, I want to surf those waves. I know I can do it, and I need to get the right gear, put in the hard work, and that's what I want to do. And I knew it at that moment. And then he he did not have the same experience. He ended up moving to Montana and becoming a fly fisherman. And then actually later we went to Fort Point, and Fort Point was like gigantic and barreling. Nobody's out again. And I'm like, Parker, let's go out. And he was like, I'll film you. And I just thought, I was like, this looks easy compared to what we just did. And immediately get like paddle out, immediately get pinned down on a rock. And there was no way I could. It was the same thing. I didn't have the right gear, not the preparation. But I don't know, like that was just how my mind worked. I was like, I see perfect waves, I want to try to surf them. And so yeah, that was the moment where I just like, after that day, I never looked back. I committed fully. And then yeah, it's been an epic ride, and a long ride, and a ton of hard work, and a steep learning curve where kind of once again I just, same thing I did when I was a kid, like picked as many people's brains as I could, begged people to let me tag along in the beginning, and begged the first person who I got a gun from to surf Mavericks. I had to beg him to make me the board and promise him that I wouldn't die because I was a woman, to buy a board from him. And in the process I realized that like there was this power that was really impactful when people would see women surf big waves, that they would have their minds opened to like what women can do, and their whole perception of like what women are capable of would change and switch. And so along the way I started surfing contests again, um and one of them was the big wave event at Nelscott Reef, Oregon in 2014. That was part of the Big Wave World Tour, and that was a really pivotal moment in my career because I met Paige Alms, Andrea Moeller, and Kiala Kennelly, and to get and also it was the first time that a big wave surf event was broadcast live on the internet. And so we went out, we surfed the first hour of the day. There were 13 of us, and we just had a really positive experience and really great feedback from everybody who watched live online, having that experience of like, wow, we've never seen women surf big waves. And so at that moment, after that event, I ended up winning, which was also like fired me up because I'm a competitor and I love winning. And I was like, well, we should be on the whole entire Big Wave World Tour, because at the time the men had a 6 event tour. And and so I went to all the women at the time, and I was like, hey, there's something here. I don't know what it is, but we should all make a pact to stick together, just like Billie Jean King did in tennis. And most of them were like, we don't know what you're talking about. You're crazy. Except for Paige, Kale, and Andrea were like, yeah, we're with you. Together, we formed the Committee for Equity in Women's Surfing, and we got the state of California to back us. At first, we were just asking for access to compete at Mavericks. And then eventually we also started asking for equal pay as well. And we got so first we got the California Coastal Commission to back us. And next we got the California State Lands to back us, which is even bigger than the Coastal Commission. And so in that process, we were able to kind of back WSL into a corner and win equal pay for all women in surfing. So that was, when you asked what was the most proud moment in my big wave surfing career, that's it. Yeah.
Well, great answer, Bianca. From, let's say, that pleasant and benign welcome on your first day out at Ocean Beach.
It wasn't my first day. It was just a day that I had never, like, I didn't
Ah,
know. I had surfed Ocean Beach, but not on days like that.
sure. Actually, so that particular day, was it one of those days where it was big and it was perfect, but maybe it was just so big that either they were just that many less people, and then maybe the few people out there were just scattered out so
I
that
mean,
you were
yeah.
like kind of on your own?
Yeah, it was, it was 2006, and there weren't as many people surfing Ocean Beach, especially not on the big days. And if I had to make a guess, I would guess that the people who were surfing were probably down towards the middle of the beach, and we were up at VFWs. And I don't know, but like even just recently, that's usually where I have my worst beatdowns, is at VFWs for whatever reason. And I know a lot of other surfers with a ton of experience here who also have that experience. It's like it just packs a punch, and the sandbar can get really shallow there. So yeah, nobody was out there, but I think at the time there were the surf culture in San Francisco, since I've entered it, which I would say I started to enter like in the early mid 2000s. My dad lived in San Francisco since I was 8. So, but I didn't start surfing here until I was a student at UC Santa Barbara, like in 2003. And when I first started surfing here, there just were not nearly as many people who surfed here. And now there's a really nice, thriving surf culture and community here. But yeah, even in 2006, and now on the big days, you can find a couple hundred people, giving it a go. But back then, I don't know, there there were still plenty of spots along the beach that are just totally empty, and even still today, it's a long beach. It's 3 miles long. So yeah, we did actually. We saw a couple of surfers who looked like older guys paddling out on huge boards, and we were kind of like, those guys, what are those guys doing? Like as if they didn't know what they were doing, but really we were the idiots who didn't know what we were doing.
Well, I started surfing at Ocean Beach or learning at Ocean Beach maybe around 2009 or so. And
Uh,
and I wasn't going out on those kind of days when you were going out. Those kinds of days, I think I was at the beach with binoculars trying to spot surfers,
yeah.
But I would go out on let's say more you know everyday surfer days, and
Hmm.
even those small days compared to days today, like that, they
Yeah.
were just so many less people,
Right.
15 years
Yeah.
ago. So even on smaller days, and I can only imagine on like big days, yeah, just you had the canvas to yourself.
Yeah.
Just staying with your surfing career, not as the activist Bianca, but just the surfer Bianca. Is there a moment that stands out, Bianca, where you were
Oh,
like,
it's the
this
surfer.
this was this was all that I dreamt of, maybe a particular wave, a particular contest, a particular day that you will cherish forever?
I mean, there's so many, but I guess most recently, that's probably why I, still keep striving to do better and better, and I still believe that there's better waves out there. But I mean, just recently, just this December, I got to surf in the Eddie Aikau Invitational, and I mean, that was definitely like one of the best days of my life yet. So special and such an honor to get to surf in that event. It's at Waimea Bay, and Waimea Bay is a perfect natural stadium. But there is actually it's like a festival without actual festival grounds at the same time. So I think 80,000 people came, which is incredible because that means like 80,000 people had to figure out like how to get a spot, how to get there. Most people like camp out on the street overnight just to watch that next day. And you get a moment's notice. So like they had to figure it out within 24 hours. And as an athlete, I was watching the swell 2 weeks ahead of time, and I just had a feeling that it was going to happen. So I made arrangements and just committed to going early to get acclimated. And luckily, I was right because I'm not, nobody forecasts are all fiction until they're fact. But I just had like a gut instinct and I followed it. And so like the night before, just to give you an idea of what it looked like, is like the night before the event, as competitors, we are allowed to take down a vehicle and leave our gear inside of that car. Yeah.
Bianca, for a second, this is so special.
Yeah.
Being invited and taking part in one of the most historic events in the sport of surfing, it is so special. So, well, congrats
Yeah.
for
Thank
being
you.
there. Can you can you help us for a second and just educate us on
Yeah.
what is Eddie Aikau and what is a special? One of the things I remember hearing about is I have a friend who's never surfed, but she grew up in Wahoo,
Okay.
and she spoke about she and her family going to this event, making this kind of like, it's almost like, if you follow like a baseball team and a football or a football,
Right.
like if when that thing happens in town,
Yeah.
you go family
Yeah.
watch it. And to see that from a sport which is still pretty niche, most people don't surf. I was just so amazed because I was already surfing, but I'd not heard of Eddie Aikau. And so
Mm,
right after that conversation, I had to kind of go look it up. So
yeah.
yeah, please help us out and tell us about this thing.
Yeah, so the North Shore is like the mecca of big wave surfing and of surfing. And so it's the home of the 7 Mile Miracle, and it has more surf spots and world-class surf spots than most places in the world in this 7-mile stretch of coastline. And every winter, all of these incredible spots come to life, and they're big and they're gnarly. And so Eddie Aikau was the first ever lifeguard on the North Shore, and he established the Hawaiian Water Safety and Hawaiian Lifeguard Association, and saved more than 500 lives in his time. And so he is just like, he was a big wave surfer, but he was also somebody who was really in service of others, and had this like what they call the rainbow warrior spirit. So he was in service of others, but he was also always out there pushing himself, pushing the limits, and exploring his own potential, and inspiring others to do the same. And so he went on the celestial navigation boat that the ancient Polynesians used to travel on, called the Hokulea. And the Hokulea would reenact some of their voyages. And so they go on these celestial missions where they're sailing from one place to the other navigating just by using the stars. And so it's an honor to the ancient Hawaiian heritage and culture. And Eddie passed on this mission because they went out into these kind of like on a stormy day. The Hokulea went out, set sea, and lost all communication and contacts, and so they could still see the island from afar. And Eddie said, you know what, I'm gonna paddle to the island, and I'll get help for us. And so everybody else stayed with the boat, and Eddie ended up getting lost at sea trying to get back. But the saying is, Eddie would go because he would go in the surf, he would go to save someone, and he went on that day to try to rescue the rest of the crew on the Hokulea, to make sure that they could get help if they needed it. And yeah, I mean, they searched and searched and searched for him for days. But like, if you go into the open ocean in the Pacific, the odds of being found are incredibly low. So in honor of his legacy, this event happens every single year, and it's really special. It starts with an opening ceremony that's basically like a celebration of life of Eddie, with an ancient Hawaiian ritual of prayer. And the Ali'i come, the kingdom of Hawaii, and the people in the Ali'i are from the Hawaiian royalty. And so it's a very spiritual ceremony. And yeah, it's an incredible honor to even be invited to compete. And so the last time the Eddie ran, and the event doesn't run every single year because the requirements for the surf are so large, and you don't always get a swell that big. But we have the opening ceremony every year. And so I've been invited. Women started getting invited in 2019. And I have been I was the first alternate the last time the Eddie ran. And I was and I was with the beach marshal, all day in my wetsuit, which is a competitors. Being the first alternate's like probably most challenging thing you can do. It's exhausting because you just need to be ready all day. And so anyways, I committed. I showed my it's like, to get invited, part of what gets you invited into the event is, you need to embody the spirit of Eddie, which is like the aloha spirit and the rainbow warrior spirit, and being in service of others, but also, charging hard when you get the opportunity on these big days. So this year, to get the invite as an official invitee was just like a dream come true, honestly. And then for the event to run, another dream come true. So yeah, it's kind of like a national holiday that doesn't happen every single year. So when the contest is actually on the entire island of Oahu, plus people from all over the world and all over the states fly in just to get to witness this event going down. So the night before the event, we get to take a car down into the Waimea Valley, and which is also an incredibly spiritual place, and has a lot of historical significance in Hawaiian culture. And so we get to take our car down and leave it with all of our gear, and then walk as we walk back to the house. Like that's the fun part, is there's all these people who have already set up there. Like the people tailgate overnight, and they set up couches and cookout, and they even bring screens and yeah, because like if you wanted to buy, there's no concessions or bathrooms. So I mean, there's bathrooms, but like if you need when you want to go watch the Eddy, you need to come prepared with your own water, your own food, and whatever you're gonna need throughout the day. So that was really touching and spectacular to see, like, what people do to just go watch the event, and then to think about, like, okay, all these people are here to watch us surf. And then also I had fun thinking about, like, well, what would my strategy be if I was going to be a spectator? Because it's hard to, you like the traffic and everything. And I decided I would take the bus and get dropped off. But yeah, so then you wake up, then the next morning you wake up in the dark. And I was with Greg Long. We were staying together, and it's like a classic big wave surfer thing. The morning of an event, somebody always is like, do you think there's going to be any waves? And I'm like, what? You're crazy. It's going to be huge. Of course there's going to be waves. And so then,
I'm sorry, but that is something, maybe that like, the power of nature and the ocean, that's like equalizes, the everyday Joe surfer and like the pro big wave surfer, which is like the morning I feel like, oh my God, I took a week off to go surf, like, I don't know, like Lombok or somewhere. Like, are we actually gonna get any waves?
Yeah. Yeah, it happens every single event, whether it's I mean, Greg Long's one of the best forecasters in the world. And whether I'm with Greg or Paige Alms or whoever, it's like that thing of your nervous anxiety, and somebody says is it gonna be flat? So we walk down in the dark again, back down to Waimea, and it's like buzzing, and there's, people are selling coffees on the side of the road, and there's so many people. And if you've ever been to a Hawaii or Oahu, it's kind of like a later morning kind of culture that people don't really like rise before the sunrise. And so, yeah, we get down there, and there's just like this natural arena filled with thousands and thousands of people. And the swell was still filling in during the morning, but then it was just like pumping all day. And so, in my heat, I had Ross Clark Jones, who was the oldest competitor in the event, and that was super inspiring to be out there with him. And he's just like good vibes all the time. He's like calls himself a born maniac. And I had Mason Ho, who also is a really fun personality, and Ian Walsh and Mark Healy and Annie Reichert, and Francisco Porchella. And so you can get a lift off the beach from the water patrol. So the Waimea has giant shore break, and so they want us to obviously save our energy for sending it on the waves. So you can paddle out anytime during the heat before your heat. Each heat's 45 minutes. And when we get out into the channel and looking straight into the waves of the heat before us, everyone is just like screaming and cheering and psyching out of their minds, like, because the waves are giant. I mean, if Waimea is that big, they're running the Eddy. So you also don't get to practice in conditions like this, or even see Waimea like this from the water or the land. It's rare. So it was just like amazing and spectacular. And yeah, and then when our heat started, the guys just start going crazy. So and they're sending it, going nuts, like big wipeouts and sitting too deep. And then it was like my turn to, get to take bat and I caught probably one of the biggest waves of the event.
Wow.
Yeah.
Stopping you for a second, Bianca. So you were an alternate the year before, which is
Yeah.
such a nerve-wracking
Yeah.
sort of state as you described. Next day, you get invited back as a confirmed competitor.
Hmm.
And I don't want this point to be lost on people that the whole contest happens in one day.
Right.
And there is no guarantee that the contest is even going to happen because, thanks to the wizardry of surf forecasting, they can likely come up with like a day when the waves are going to be like the grandest and the best. But Mother Nature still may not provide for that. So, anyway, so there is all this anticipation, the contest happening, the morning off. You don't know if the waves are going to be that good until again the waves show up,
Yeah.
the sunrises, the waves show up. Tell us what's going through your mind and your body, Bianca, when your heat is about to start. Uh, Describe to us the sensations. You have done all the preparation, but until you actually get on that jet ski and get dropped off, it's not real.
Yeah. Well, I think that's like one of the values of like being a veteran or a modern elder in the sport. I'm 39 now. Is that like I have a ton of experience. I have so much experience in events and in big waves. And so I think that that's like something that you don't have when you're younger is like being able to just stay centered and stay in balance. And, I have my morning routine and my activation dialed in. And so, I think I was just really present and just soaking it all in and ready. Like, if there's ever a time where you're going to send it and go for it, this is the time. You've got like the best Hawaiian Water Patrol looking out for you. You've got a crowd of 80,000 people watching. So, like, I was just like just ready to go and really, really filled with gratitude and very, very present and calm. Calmness is good. You don't want to like burn out your energy and be overly excited. Or and just entering with no expectations and making sure that you're maintaining that centeredness and that balance throughout your entire heat and throughout your experience, because in big waves, if you're not centered and you're going for a wave, really bad things can happen. So like that's one of the beauties and the values of being of the natural process of aging in big wave surfing, is that it's actually a huge advantage. And so just getting out into the water, I just felt really good, like I felt like this is just all fabulous and such a great day. And I was enjoying being a spectator of the waves, the athletes, in appreciation of all of the organizers. The Hawaiian Water Patrol are the real superstars of the day. They're out there all day, making rescues and watching out for us, and they don't get a break all day. So like also just I liked to take time and just watch and admire them because they're the best water patrol in the world. So yeah, I just felt like really at peace with myself.
Amazing, Bianca. I love the term that you just threw at us, modern elder.
Yeah, modern elder.
I mean, yes, you're not quite 40, but you have been surfing for most of your life
Yeah.
at
More of
at the
my life
highest,
than not. Yeah.
yeah, and at the highest levels too. So, you come at this point and you're like, you know what, this is a new event and it is certainly a very historic event, but I have been on days like this before,
Yeah.
and I have brought all my skills to the fore and I have performed at this level. So, yes, you went and caught one of maybe the best waves of the day. And I want to actually connect this in a roundabout way to that, to the fight for equal access and equal pay for
Hmm.
women. So one of the things that I have wondered about is that if anything, Hawaii is more ground central for surf
Yeah.
and even big wave surf than contiguous USA, California,
Hmm.
even Oregon is. There were certainly more, I think, women surfers, maybe even
Definitely.
more big wave surfers.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, how was it that yours was one of the first and maybe one of the loudest voices pushing for equal pay in baby surfing? One would think that this may have come from like Hawaii or different place. And if this was just an accident, and like maybe that was it, but I'm just wondering if there was something else to the story than the fact that you were out here fighting and maybe leading the fight along with others.
I think my voice was definitely not the first, and there have been women advocating and for access and equal pay since the beginning of the sport, honestly. But I think the main difference with our strategy was that we were for women who showed the power of what happens when you support each other and you stick together. And that was the real
Mm.
key difference was just now you had four women collectively using their voice together and then working with the state to make sure that we were heard. And California sets the precedent for so much throughout the United States. So I think that that's why it happened in California first, and then Hawaii followed suit, actually.
Hello, friends. Just a quick break. This is not an ad. If you have been enjoying these conversations, I would love for you to subscribe to my newsletter. It is where I go deeper, sharing stories, reflections, and behind the scenes insights that don't always make it into the podcast. I write about what I'm learning from elite athletes and how to stay ageless in body and mind. If you have ever wanted a thoughtful, inspiring read that ties it all together training, aging, mindset, and awe. You will love this. You can find the link in the show notes or just head to agelessathlete.co. Again, www.agelessathlete.co, that is, to sign up. And yeah, just a couple of emails a month, and you can unsubscribe anytime. Absolutely no spam ever. Okay, back to the show.
Such an excellent point, Bianca, which is yes, individually you could be the loudest, but you wouldn't go that far. But
Right.
then you corral a team together.
Hmm.
And maybe that's where your leadership skills shine
Yeah.
because you brought everybody together. Um, what did that process look like behind the scenes? I mean, was it sounds from the outside sounds like maybe it was quite messy, because to me it seems like you're competing within the WSL in so many ways, but now you're kind of challenging the WSL.
Yeah. Well, honestly, actually, that was one of our advantages was we didn't have anything to lose. And so at the time when so what it looked like was like we surfed in that first event, and so first it was the Big Wave World Tour was separate from the WSL at the time, and um the Mavericks event at the time was also run outside of the WSL and by different organizers. And so because Mavericks was geographically 20 minutes from my house, it made the most sense to advocate and try to get into that event. And it was I was naive. I just thought that hey, this is just makes sense. Like you're going to have more viewers for your event. You're reaching a bigger demographic. And so from a business perspective, to me, it was like we just had this one very successful event in Oregon, that was broadcast live, and we saw all of the incredible feedback in support of women. And and so it just kind of like, in my mind, I it was a no-brainer that they were going to say yes when I asked the event organizers at Mavericks. And in a way they did say yes, because what I did was I called in to Jeff Clark and the Cartel Management were on the radio on a show called Off the Lip Radio. That's like a local Santa Cruz. And so I called into the radio. I have a restaurant in Marin, and I was actually working, and I told the radio host that I was going to call in at 7 on the dot. And so I made sure everybody in the restaurant had like their, in my section, had their drinks and food. And then I ran outside, like right next to the restaurant, called the radio, and they answer. And I asked Jeff Clark on the air, I said, "Hey, huge fan, after Oregon, since Oregon was so successful, can we add a women's division to the event at Mavericks?" And he basically said, if women show up and surf all winter and we see that they're committed and put in the time, that yes, you can. And so what I heard and my interpretation in that moment was like, it was a yes. And so then, right immediately that night, I sent out an email to the 13 women. There were only 13 women surfing big waves at the time. Now there's probably like about, 50 in the world. And I said, "Hey, the great news, Jeff Clark says we can have a women's division at Mavericks. And we're going to create a fund. And all of you, if anybody needs a place to stay, all you have to do is show up every time the wave breaks. And if anybody needs a place to stay, like, I got you. And, this is going to be so awesome, And, and then, nothing was really happening. And so, like, I thought I heard a yes, but then, this big long fight ensued. And it did not look like that. It was like so we really had to. It was, even though it seemed like a yes, I had no idea like the fight that I was about to get in. And the cool thing is you'll be able to see the whole documentary version of it. It'd be too long for me to try to like explain the inner workings of it. But there's going to be a wonderful documentary coming out made by Sachin Cunningham, and she's got the rough cut now. So by the end of this year, that documentary should be out. And right now, the working title is She Changed, like she changed it. Or you could check out the New York Times Magazine cover story of 2019, and you can get like an in-depth account of how that whole fight played out. But yeah, it was like, I don't like fighting, but I am good at it, especially when it comes to fighting for something bigger than myself.
Amazing. Yes. Yeah, it sounds like, sounds like the powers that be were open to it, but it was a big conditional yes.
Yeah. And the good thing is, like, now that they have come around, and and it's like, we are making change, but change does take time. And a lot of times when you're in the fight, you want things to happen immediately, and it feels like it moves really slow. And then sometimes you're like, what has changed, but then you kind of got to zoom out and see like, okay, yeah, no, things are changing, and change takes time. And it's like a pendulum where things swing back and forth, and, you move the needle forward, and then someone tries to turn it back. And then, but overall, we are making great change. And it's been especially fun watching the women on the WSL shortboard tour just really, really like accelerate, like they've gotten some kind of rocket fuel or something, because now they get to surf at all the best locations, and you see just that the level of surfing really, really is incredible. When women get the opportunity, they rise to the occasion.
100%. I mean, all humans do.
Yes,
and
exactly. Yeah.
women do as well. And Bianca, it's such a good story. Like, uh, talking about this long process, as the modern elder
Yeah.
of the surf world, you have certainly come a long ways from the fiery teenager
Hmm.
who dropped all the sponsors, and now you have, yeah, I mean, you're still fired up, but
Yeah.
you have, I think, built up this experience and the wisdom and the patience to stand ground. And this is this other excellent point that you just hinted at, which is, yes, we did not have women surfing at places like Pipeline and Teopu until recently. And just even me as a spectator, just looking at women performing just in the last few years, it's ridiculous. Like
Right.
the stuff that women are doing, at those, you know, in some of the biggest, gnarliest waves,
Hmm.
and the confidence with which all of you are surfing, it just seems crazy. Like talking of, I mean, it would seem that that would have taken much longer, but like to your point, like, you give people a door to go through, and then you just get more and more people doing it. And all of a
Right.
sudden, like, just the levels and standards, yeah,
Yeah.
they just go crazy. Um, Bianca, moving on. So you have carved a path, not just as
Yeah.
a surfer, but also as an activist, but also as an entrepreneur
Yeah.
and as a coach. I mean, just following your career a little bit, like you seem to be, just talk to us, what is life as a professional surfer and the things that you're doing in the water and outside the water.
Yeah. So so depending on the time of the year, right now we're kind of like in a transitional phase, right? So the we just sort of the northern hemisphere season is which is from, end of October through March, is coming to a close. And now we've got like a little period of kind of like spring training, and then you've got the southern hemisphere season that fires up. But the northern hemisphere season is in the Pacific Ocean. You're going to get the bigger and more incredible waves during that window of time. And but essentially, like, if you're ready, if you have the means and the resources, you can go surf big waves. You could fly somewhere around the world and surf a big swell every week almost. But I don't have those means and resources. So my days look like, right now I'm kind of like in spring training. I'm on this cleanse, and I'm at the gym I'm at the gym, 3 times a week, doing a movement-based strength training, and then I surf. I usually get in the water every single day because it is a part of my wellness pillar. And I'm obsessively checking surf models and surf forecasts, you know, throughout the day, more than I'm checking social media for sure. And then I'm trying to build my businesses and launch my next course for surf longevity. And so that's one of the ways that I make money, is through coaching. And one of your previous guests, Lionel Conacher, is somebody who I coached. And I basically, what I realized was, it took me 20 years to surf Mavericks, and I was able to teach him when he was 59 in 10 months. And so, and so, yeah, so I realized, like, I really love coaching, and I love helping people achieve their impossible, whatever that is, whether it's riding bigger waves or technical surfing, or just mastering their mindset. That I have the skills and the experience, and I have a lot of knowledge to share at this point. And what's exciting is that I'm still learning too. So yeah. So my days are like, I've always, honestly, I've always had to work to support myself as a big wave surfer. So usually I'm trying to be really efficient with my timing. Like, If I'm, if I'm driving in the car, maybe I might be doing some visualization during that time, or I'm just trying to be as efficient as possible because I don't have the luxury of like what I imagine someone like Steph Curry or Serena Williams has, right? Like I can't just practice and play and get massages and go to the spa, which I'm not saying that's all they do. They do a ton more, like, but I also have to hustle really hard to pay the bills. And so that's kind of how I split my time, is like between the physical part and then working on my businesses.
Surfing longevity,
Yeah,
I
surf
may not
longevity.
be getting the course right, so that ties in so well with the theme of the show.
Yeah,
Can you tell
it
us a
does.
bit more on? I'm guessing that this course may be about helping people continue to surf as they hit, let's say, limits, perceived limits with aging.
Definitely.
Tell
Yeah.
us more about this.
Yeah. So I designed this course. So like I said, I coached this gentleman who, he started surfing when he was 53, and he had this dream to surf Mavericks by the time he was 60. And so he sought me out, and so and we were able to do it. I coached him, I made him do all the work, and then I applied the strategies that I was coaching. I coached him, on habits, techniques, and mindsets to be very efficient and to work with his body and not against it. And I applied those same techniques to myself, and I keep having better and better seasons. And like I said, I just surfed the Eddy. I'm still at the top of the podium in my sport. And so that's got me thinking that, like, if you want to keep surfing strong and going for as long as you want, I can coach you on how to do it. And I think it really comes down to the habits, techniques, and mindsets.
Bianca, your work with Lionel is truly astonishing. People listening to the show, you guys need to go and listen to the episode with Lionel Conacher of him. So, the part about Lionel's story, which is equally astonishing, is not just that he surfed one of the gnarliest waves on the planet at the age of 59. More importantly, or at least as importantly, he did not actually even start surfing until crossing the age of 50. And in a sport where most people, like myself, sometimes believe that if you don't start young, you might as well like not even start. So, Bianca, you know, please correct me, challenge me, because I always think that yes, surfing is such a visceral sport where if you start young, you learn how to move with the ocean, your muscles, your mind, your body just grows up with waves. If you don't start early enough, then one may never acquire, some of those things. But I think you are saying that one can still learn the sport and excel as an adult.
Yes, definitely. Absolutely. Yeah. I think actually, and I think like, especially when we look at mindset's usually, you can't even really teach teenagers mindset. That's like, so I think that, as we age, our experience and our wisdom is a very, very powerful tool in the ocean, and learning how to read the water, and learning what gear to choose, and how to master our techniques, so that way we're using our energy efficiently, and that we're not wrecked for our next sessions. I think that those skill sets are something that are huge advantages in surfing. And so what I learned, working with Lionel and with others, is like that, people with age actually often are better learners. And if they have the knowledge shared in a way that's tangible, I mean, there's never any shortcut for the hard work, but working efficiently and strategically I think you can really do whatever you want. I mean, I don't believe anything's impossible.
No, I mean that is so badass, Bianca. But I'm still, call me the optimistic skeptic.
Yeah, no
And
worries.
I think people need to actually go check out your course and take your course. So we will put links in the show. But if you
Yeah.
don't mind, just sharing maybe one or two, let's say, drills around just mindset, for example,
Just
or
mindset,
maybe around.
yeah. So I think like letting go of that idea that, oh, I had to start as a kid, to get good at this sport. I think it's like first of all, like letting go of that preconceived notion, right? That's one. And then the mindset also, it's part of like, when you have a goal in surfing and you want to do something, and I'll just use Lionel as an example because his was so clear. It was like he wanted to surf Mavericks. I mean, we both committed to doing the work, but we didn't know what the outcome would be. And I think that's that's like with business or relationships or anything, you don't know. I think it's also there's a lot of power in accepting like, okay, I'm going to go for this, and the beauty of this is that like I'm going for it. You know? The only things that I regret are the things that I haven't gone for. But when you go for something and you put in the work and you try your hardest, like everybody respects that. And most importantly, like you respect yourself in the process. But there's a saying in surfing, like you don't know if you don't go. And there's truth in that. But then also as an age adapting athlete or an ageless athlete, like you do want to be strategic and tactical in what waves you choose and what sessions you choose. And but that's what I love about surfing is that you can learn in any condition, you know? So so those are a couple of the mindsets that I think are really, really powerful is like, going for something and just, surrendering to the beauty of going for it, and letting go of the outcome, but believing in yourself on the way, right? Believing it's possible.
Bianca, I adore everything you just said. And
Yeah.
I think this hits at the crux of the philosophy of the show, which is just the very first limiting belief, which is one is not capable of something anymore just because one is getting older. And I think one just needs to shed that belief. But then also, what you said is being strategic about it.
Being
Because I
strategic.
think what you're telling us is that one can actually become better with less time and less resources.
Yes, definitely.
I will certainly say that, and maybe this hangs true to other parts of life, that I get more shit done when I have less time because I'm
Yeah.
just more organized, more
Right.
organized, more thoughtful, more intentional. Moving quickly to the end of the session, and a couple of things, a couple of topics I still want to pick your brain on, Bianca. So, one thing that I've admired about your approach over time is how seriously you plan and you prepare. And we cannot. I'm not going to ask you to go through all of your physical drills and whatnot, but I do want to ask you about mental preparation. And actually, to zoom in a bit, I have heard you talk about breath work.
Hmm.
Can you share a bit about how breath work can help not just surfers, but I think prepare all kinds of people to
Yeah.
to take on a big challenge headlong?
Yeah, so I think that that's number one. That's the most important thing that you can focus on is your breath work. And what's amazing about it is like that you can make gains in very little time. So I think it's also incredibly rewarding practice. But depending on what your state of being is at any given moment. So like for example, this morning I usually do 6 minutes every morning because that's an amount that I feel is valuable to me and that I can commit to every single day. For some people, maybe it's 1 minute, maybe it's two, maybe it's an hour. Those are like the really disciplined folks that are practicing connecting with their deepest part of their self, and have an incredible amount of discipline to sit and meditate. But usually for preparing for big waves, or for waves that maybe are intimidating, maybe they're not big waves, maybe it's just like going out in crowded waves or whatever, I like to do just uh a breathing up process, where I'm inhaling for 4 seconds and inhaling for 4 seconds through my nose and exhaling for 8 through my mouth. And I like doing it just laying down on the floor right after I wake up. And so I will repeat that breath for actually today I only did it for 3 minutes, and then I held it for 3 minutes. So that was just fun, because I just thought, I felt like, oh, you know what? Instead of breathing for the next 3 minutes, I'm just going to do a hold. Usually I'll do a hold at the end of the six, but I was in the mood, so I just held it for 3 minutes. And that would be a breath that you could also use in the lineup, in the water, to calm down if you're feeling anxious or nervous, or you're too psyched up, or you're noticing your heart's beating really fast. That's a breath that's going to calm down your heart rate and oxygenate your system. And so that's also the breath that I do. Breathing up is what I do before, when I'm sitting out in the lineup preparing to catch a huge wave, that I want to enter into that wave with the lowest possible heart rate and the most oxygen in my system. So that way, if I wipe out or something happens, that I can handle that wipeout. And then another breath that you could do if you needed energy, well, like, let's say it's the end of the day of work and you're tired and you've got like that mental fatigue that can be really exhausting, because you were just, working on projects that required you to sit all day. And you're at the beach and you're like, oh yeah, I want to paddle out, but I'm just like, I'm tired. Then you can energize yourself with your breath through small, short breaths. So, like, just inhaling once through the nose and exhaling for 2 out the mouth, inhale, exhale, and so you're just mimicking the kind of breath that you would have if you say you had an elevated heart rate on a run. And so that's, I think, the most powerful tool. And when I first started working with a sports psychologist, he said something to me like, how many days can you go without eating food? And it's something like, about a month. And how many days can you go without water? And it's like a couple days or so. But how long can you go without a breath? And it's not very long. So that analogy and that metaphor really has inspired my breath work, and is something that I find that I've actually got my beads, my mala beads in my hand right now, because I find that, like, throughout the day, if I'm noticing, I've got my mind's going in a million different directions, or I need to come back in center and focus, that I go back to the breath work all the time. So it's the way I start my day, it's the way I end my day, and then throughout the day I incorporate it, and it's something you can do anywhere. And so that's I'm a huge fan of breath work and meditation, whatever that looks like for you. Like I said, whether it's 30 seconds or 6 minutes or an hour, that developing a practice, I think, is like one of the most valuable skills you can develop in life.
Bianca, that's indeed, yeah, it's simple, but again, so powerful. And I'm just curious, I know that you give talks and motivational uh, speeches to different groups. I'm wondering, do you take people through your breathwork practice?
Sometimes, yeah, it depends on the audience. But yeah, sometimes I'll take them on a big wave breath hold, but not
Okay.
everybody wants to do it. Yeah.
When people from outside the surf world come and hear you speak, what's the biggest takeaway you want to leave them with?
The biggest takeaway that I think everybody, I hope that people, I think that like, I hope that people are inspired to go for it and whatever they're doing, and inspired to take action. And but also it's not for everyone. So like I do a talk on risk, and and it's important to remind people that you can choose risk. But that choosing risk is not for everyone, and that's okay. So I think that it varies from person to person, but I hope that people feel inspired and want to go out and try to achieve their impossible, whatever that is for them.
Sure. Absolutely. Bianca, last part of the conversation,
Yeah.
what I like to call the ageless athlete section. What are you doing today to help you prepare to serve at least as well, if not better, in 10 years?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to complete my cleanse for today. So, yeah, that's actually been one that I'd say the coolest part about this cleanse is that it's really made me think about the way that I eat. And I would have said, if you would have asked me before the cleanse, I would have said I'm a clean eater, and I am. But I think we tend to get into a habit of like the things we eat and what we buy at the store. And so even if we're buying healthy food, and the ways we cook. So I think that just flexibility and like variety is super valuable. And so and for me in this case, it's like how I'm cooking my vegetables. Like I'm not using the pan. I'm either baking, broiling, or grilling them. And I'm also using different vegetables. And, I got a CSA box, and they're just delivering me random vegetables that I might not have picked off the shelf. So I think the way that I eat today and the water that I'm drinking spring water right now that I went and filled up from Stinson Beach, if you know that spot. It's you can go, there's some pipes coming out of, I think it's called Red Rock or something. It might be right by Steep Ravine. But I find that spring water really has a different nutritional value when I drink it. So I went and filled up many, many gallons yesterday. So the way I'm eating today and the water that I'm drinking, because all I'm drinking is water. But also I think just believing that the most important part is believing that I can still be an incredible athlete in 10 years, and I know I can. But I think also this cleanse and this diet reset, I mean, my inflammation is gone, and I, of course, like anybody, I have my chronic issues, and my inflammation is completely gone right now. And so that is a really inspiring and incredible outcome so far and I'm probably gonna rest. I'm probably gonna do some more resting today, because that's the other part. Is you got to make sure you're getting adequate rest. But I think my lifestyle is like the lifestyle component. I'm turning 40 later in the year, and so that's it. I'm just like really reevaluating like how the ways that I could clean up different parts of my lifestyle and my habits. And because I know that I want to keep going as long as I can, and moving well and surfing big waves and going strong. So I would say my diet, my water, and my rest and are all gonna help me 10 years from now based on what I do today.
Well, happy early 40th. Yeah,
Thanks.
it is kind of a banner year. And yes, I do know that spring water have filled up plenty of gallon buckets on the way to Bolinas and back from
Yeah.
that particular spring. Um, any lifestyle changes, Bianca, movement practices that you're adopting besides the
Yeah.
one you've spoken about that we could learn from?
Yeah, so there's the diet and what are you using for your fuel, right? But then also the breath work, but also like what I've found to be really important is the way that I prepare my body every single day. And so I think it's about getting warm and staying warm. So having a consistent activation process, right? And then mine will vary. Like if today I'm probably gonna after we talk, I'm gonna go surf some small waves, but I've already activated. But I might do like a little more activation just before I go out in the water, and then tonight I'll stretch. I'll stretch and I'll foam roll, but I'm pretty much never skipping that process because it's like night and day. Like if I stretch before bed, I have a good night's rest. If I don't, I don't rest well. And like that rest is so crucial. And then activating, like getting the different muscles fired up. So, we have a tendency to use our bigger muscles, but the little muscles can get overshadowed. So taking the time to do isometric contractions and isometric holds, and it doesn't have to be a long time, but it just making some kind of a habit out of it is super important for performance and especially as we're aging as part of the
Absolutely. And I find that nighttime stretch ritual important as well, because
yeah.
for me, it's not just the quality of sleep, it's also how I feel in the morning.
Yes. Yeah.
I just turned 47. So if I have stretched, I wake up in the morning actually feeling less of a moving skeleton
Right.
and more limber.
Yeah.
Bianca, what is something that people misunderstand about you?
Misunderstand about me? What is something people miss? I don't know. Yeah. Good question. What what is something people misunderstand about me?
Let me change it. Let me change it. What is something that people don't know about you?
Something people don't know about me. I mean, there's many things, but yeah, my father's an Italian immigrant, and my mother is the survivor of a traumatic brain injury, and so yeah, my dad is just like a hardcore. I call him a professional chef athlete. He's like is his restaurant and his job, and but also so a lot of my ways of thinking and being come from his work ethic. And then my mom, after she had a brain hemorrhage when she was 19, and she could never re-enter the workforce, she had to relearn how to walk, talk, everything. So seeing her strength but then also her limitations have been huge inspirations to me.
I can see that. Well, that you have genetic gifts with your your fighter and your tenacity, those instincts. Um, what's a belief or mindset shift you've made in the last 5 years that's changed how you live or train?
um Belief or mindset shift that I have made. Probably, yeah, it's probably been just like connecting with my spirit more and taking that spirit practice to the next level. And so yeah, I think that's been like the last 3 years I've worked with a guide and really tried to just yeah, make sure that I'm always connected with my spirit and having that stoke and the aloha spirit. And because after also I did burn out after winning the fight for equal pay, like I had a lot of fatigue from that activism. And so yeah, I got help, and I started working with a spirit guide, and that has shaped a lot of my practices, my daily practices on staying connected and staying stoked.
Awesome, Bianca. And then, yeah, final fun question. I know that you have spent much time in Mexico, just south of the border.
Yeah.
So, what is one thing that you love about this country? besides the pumping surf, of course.
Yeah, I love Mexican people. So the culture and they value family above and beyond all, but also like if you keep showing up somewhere and you have community, which I do, you become part of the family. And that is for me, that's my favorite part about like Mexican culture is being part of the family and engaging in the rituals that they have. Like this last year, I got to make tamales and pan de muertos, all in preparation to celebrate and honor the people who have passed. And that was, really, really special. And I just love that Mexican um culture, and they love to have a good time and eat food and drink. And so yeah, it's the people.
Mexican people are some of the nicest
Yeah.
and most generous I have met in the world. I almost feel like I need to make it a mission to educate Americans
Yeah.
how different Mexicans are from like this popular perception that we have been fed. Bianca, it's been amazing having you on Ageless Athlete today. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your wisdom.
Thank you so much for having me. That was fun.
That's it, folks. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Ageless Athlete podcast. I hope you enjoyed this show just as much as I enjoyed creating and producing it. Whether you are an athlete looking to push your limits or someone striving to maintain a healthy, active lifestyle as you age, there is always something new to learn. From Ageless Athlete, we bring you a fresh episode each and every week. If you liked what you heard, we would love it if you would take a moment to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an update. And if you really liked what you heard, please leave us a review, crush those 5 stars on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever else you listen to your podcasts. It helps us reach more people who are passionate about staying strong and resilient, no matter their age. Don't forget to visit our website and leave your email so I can send you occasional insights, stories, and tips to keep you inspired and motivated on your journey. You can also follow us on Instagram at Ageless Athlete Podcast and on YouTube at Ageless Athlete Podcast as well for even more great content. All of these links are available on the show notes for this episode. This show is entirely produced by me, Kush Khandelwal, based out of California with the help of my trusted adventure pup Roger. Until next time, keep challenging yourself, keep pushing those limits, stay mentally and physically fit, continue doing what you love to do, and my friends, stay ageless. Friends, this is not an ad. This is just a quick message to those amongst us who are listening to Ageless Athlete podcast for the first time. I would love it if you would hit subscribe and follow on your favorite podcast app, whether it's Apple Podcast or Spotify or Stitcher or Overcast or what have you. We bring you stories and routines and other inspiration from elites in the world of the best outdoor sports. In each episode, you will find how these athletes stay connected to the outdoors, maintain peak performance, and continue to thrive as they age. I encourage you to look through prior episodes and listen to a couple and see if they resonate. And then, come back next week. We release an episode each week. And I am really inspired to bring you some of the best stories from the world of the outdoors. Okay, back to the show.